Hi folks, General Manager Tony Mazzucco coming to you with our weekly COVID-19 Facebook Live update. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a moment. Sorry for being a few minutes late this week. And as soon as folks log on, we will go ahead and get ourselves started. We have a couple of COVID updates and a few other updates, and we're going to talk about a unique Norwood Day 2020. Hey Catherine, thank you for joining us. Just going to pull up one of my images here. Oh, I just saw myself on Facebook that we're going live. All right. Hi, Leanne. Thank you for joining us. So as folks are logging on, I'm going to go ahead and say welcome to everyone. I hope everyone is out there being safe and staying safe. We always start off with our COVID updates and a couple of other updates about how the pandemic is unrolling in Norwood and elsewhere in the Commonwealth. Hey, Michelle, thank you again for joining us. I did get one comment from somebody. When I do get questions in the comments, I should remember to repeat the question because a lot of folks follow these lives after the fact, either watching them on our Facebook page or via Norwood Community Media. And I do want to give a shout out to Norwood Community Media and thank them for helping us record these and getting them replayed on NCM, so that way we're able to get these out to a much wider audience. So, where are we in terms of our COVID numbers? Well, the health department later today will be posting our weekly update on the Facebook page. We've seen a increase in the percent positive rate and another increase in the overall number of cases. We are still in the yellow according to the state's new metric. Our recent percent positive rate's about 3.2%. We're continuing to see our numbers climb week over week. If there's one possible positive light in this week's numbers, it's that the increase as compared to last week was a little bit smaller. We always say we need, at least 2 to 3 weeks, realistically more or less 3 to 5 weeks to see what the impact is and whether or not numbers are changing. So it's too early to see if the increase is decreasing or if it's slowing or if we're maybe hitting a crest. A couple of days of looking at state data looks like the state data has been going up, 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 and it might just be cresting a little bit, but there's still not enough data out there. We're starting to see numbers similar to what we saw in the spring. Not quite there yet on every front, but similar to what we saw in the spring. Our average age had been dropping quite a bit in Norwood, and you're seeing this around the state as well. We have had some hits in the older community recently, and as a result that number has crept up a little bit. We had a period, it was really sort of strange, if you will, where there was almost no one who was older getting COVID. It was all younger individuals, and now that's reversed a little bit and gone back a little bit closer to the numbers that we saw in the fall. Lee has commented, mask up Norwood. Couldn't agree more, Lee. We do need folks to continue to mask up and to continue to wash your hands. We're hopeful that maybe the fact that this week's increase was a little bit less than it was in previous weeks, maybe that'll continue out for a few weeks. That's probably me and the rest of our team being a little bit optimistic about how our numbers are going to go and whether they're going to go start to crest. We'd like to see that. There's sort of two theories about how communicable disease can spread, and one of them is always that if unchecked, it's going to continue to spread and your numbers will go up in perpetuity, and they'll just continue to go up until it's really hit 100% of the population. The other theory is that given that there's always some level of disease spread in a community, we're either right at the point where things are starting to crest or they're about to get really worse. For our activity level in July, there was a certain level of spread in the community. It's possible that what we're seeing for how open society is, we're at that level that maybe it will crest out a little bit, that this is just the level for how open society is. One of the things that our data has shown us, because we look at our data and we look at all of our cases, we have not seen in-school transmission. A majority of the transmission we see is in the workplace or it's families. And there's still a lot of unknowns about COVID. We have cases where it's a 5-person household and 3 of them test positive. It's a 2-person household and the husband gets it and the wife doesn't, or vice versa. So there's obviously some biological determinant out there about who is going to get COVID and who's not, and unfortunately that hasn't been determined yet. Nobody can figure that out, or certainly if they do, it's scientists and epidemiologists far smarter than I am. So we haven't seen, for instance, spread in restaurants. When it comes to going out to eat, the real risk there is more that it's people going to a place and mingling with other people. And we've said this again time and time. If you take a couple, I mean, certainly anytime you leave your house, there's always some risk. But if a couple goes out 7 nights a week, 7 different restaurants, the risk that that couple is likely to contract COVID from a dining experience is very minimal. The problem is, what most of us do, a lot of us do, is when you go out to a restaurant or to a bar, and bars are restaurants right now, you're often going with other people or interacting with other people, and that's where that risk really comes from. I think back to most of the times I go out to eat, your interactions with the wait staff or the hostess are fairly quick and easy, and the wait staff are doing a great job wearing masks. I have not been in a restaurant yet where somebody hasn't been wearing a mask. So we're not seeing, we've seen 0 cases where somebody said, well, the only thing I've done in the last week is gone out to Bob's restaurant. Occasionally you see staff, if they're working very close together in a lot of different environments. So you're not really, most people who work in an office, or a lot of people who work in an office, are working from home. But what you're seeing is maybe folks that have a job in a kitchen where they're working right next to each other. Maybe it's 2 electricians on a team and they're in a small space repairing something, 2 plumbers working together on something. Or you have certain retail jobs where people are repeatedly in a small area together, they're talking constantly to other people, and even then that level of exposure, if somebody is sick, there's not much that you can do to prevent transmission at that point. So we have next to no cases where we can't identify where somebody got it from. We usually can. Sometimes people aren't sure, but it's definitely still parties and large gatherings, and it's personal choice in a lot of cases. Not every case, but sometimes it is personal choice. And that's sort of where we face the challenge that we don't know what the state's going to do for further lockdowns or further restrictions. We would follow whatever the state guideline is on that. One of the challenges of trying to do anything locally is if we went into a hard lockdown in Norwood, it almost wouldn't matter unless everyone else is doing it. I know as kids we were all told if everyone else was jumping off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? And the answer is supposed to be no, but then the answer also would be, well, wait a minute, if everyone's doing it, there may be a reason to it. So if the governor orders those, we'll comply with those orders. But so much is coming down to people's personal choices and what we're doing as a personal choice. And it's about limiting your own personal exposure. It's about wearing a mask. I think we've all gotten accustomed to wearing a mask. I know I have tried to wear my mask even more often. I know it's a little difficult to wear the mask outside, and the governor may have kind of gone a little overboard with that, but I think it's more about building that habit. I know early on, it was back in April, we'd actually said we didn't want it to be an order because we wanted to sort of change the social norm. I, interestingly enough, had started wearing a mask when, a delivery driver comes to the house. Little points in time where it probably doesn't matter, but you want to do it to be safe. Going to the drive-thru, for instance. Do you wear a mask at the drive-thru? It's, it's sort of a matter of you should do it because we should just get in the habit of doing it. Because the more we can stop the spread and slow the spread, the more we can have the things we like to have. Going out to restaurants, going to retail stores, and things like that. But it's coming down to the personal choices we have. Thanksgiving's coming up. And that's sort of the next thing that we want to talk about is what personal choices we're going to make on Thanksgiving. My fear is the people who normally might have a small Thanksgiving of 4 are going to say, oh, well, we absolutely can't have our Thanksgiving of 4. And then the people who have the Thanksgivings of 25 or 30 are going to continue to have them. The CDC is advising against travel on Thanksgiving, and we would certainly encourage people, if at all possible, not to travel during Thanksgiving. You're going to want to meet with your family and have family Thanksgiving. It's up to every family to do what's in their best interest. When we ask everyone to try to keep it small, if you normally have 20 people at your house for Thanksgiving, maybe you should try to keep it to 5 or 6. If you normally have 5 or 6, if it's a family of 4 and just grandma and grandpa come over, you got to have that conversation about, do you want to have any risk? Are you normally interacting with them? If you see them 3 days a week, then Thanksgiving dinner may not be that big of a difference. If you never see them and you're never going out to eat, then it may be tough to take the risk. And I'll be quite honest with you, seeing fewer family members at Thanksgiving and sort of staying home, it sucks. This is the time of year we look forward to getting together with family and sitting around the table. And I have very fond memories of being a kid and big family Thanksgivings. And I know a lot of families still do that, but I think we need to look at it like we're rationing how much time we're spending with big groups because we don't want things to continue to spread. Our command team was talking this morning. We were trying to think of an analogy in the last 100 years of what it's like, and what we sort of came up with was food rationing during World War II. So the whole country's kind of engaged in this effort, and during World War II, folks had to ration quite a bit. And it's a not seeing in-laws can be a blessing. That's the truth, but it's about rationing how much you're doing things. And Sheila, thank you very much for that compliment. And Bishwa, I'll address that in 1 second. So you got to sort of ration how often you're seeing people and when we're seeing people outside your circle. And it doesn't mean never do it. But you always use the example, if you're going to go out to eat with people that you don't normally eat with, so people outside your household, keep that limited and don't do it again and again and again and again and again and again. Same thing with people you work with. I have a certain number of people that I interact with very regularly. My office staff, some of the town hall staff, some of the town's department heads. I'm not doing big group in-person meetings. I'm doing smaller ones if they have to be in person. We're doing as much digitally as we can. So it's about rationing that content. And think of it as similar to food rationing, where it's just, I really want to see a lot of people this year. Maybe we should keep it a little bit low-key. Or if you do choose to go out to lunch with 3 friends, because you go out to lunch every day after Thanksgiving and you've done it since you were in high school, if you're going to do that, just think back to the week before that and the week afterwards, how many other people you're seeing, because that's how we're going to continue to slow the spread. And I want to remind everyone of, if you remember, other than we don't want the disease to spread, we don't want to have overcrowding at hospitals in the state. And we're not necessarily seeing that just yet. Numbers are up, but that was always one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure we limited the spread. It wasn't that it was going to magically make COVID go away, and I know early on there were a lot of people very enthusiastic about, hey, if we lock down hard and fast, it'll go away, and then it won't be a problem again. It was always about limiting the chance that hospitals would end up being overloaded, because that will cause a double impact, if you will, on the healthcare system. So you may have a legitimate health need and you can't access that healthcare resource. As we've said all along, the state is better prepared. We are better prepared. Of course, we don't have the hospital up and running, so that's challenging for us, and that takes some beds out from the whole system around the state. So that's always a challenge as well. But I think it's important to think of it as rationing your visitations with people, because we know that sacrifice now will give way to a point in the spring or the summer where there's a vaccine and it's been distributed widely and you can go to as many parties as you want, and I fully expect that the country will want to celebrate as much as possible once we are through this. I know we're all getting a little weirded out sometimes when we sit down with somebody and you're physically near somebody you haven't been near before, and it seems a little strange, but I think we're all going to want to go back to having the big parties and being out at bars and restaurants and gatherings and Little League games and everything else. But it's a matter of continuing where we can and as rational as we can, trying to restrict what we're doing and try to ration what we're doing. The governor changed, or the state changed, some orders on quarantining recently. Before, it used to be you couldn't get out of quarantine with a test. Now, if you've been quarantined for at least 8 days and you get a negative test, they will allow you out of quarantine. The testing time lag is a couple of days, so you're still closer to that 14-day period. Our recommendation as of now on that is you should, if ordered to quarantine, please don't rush to get a test. Please quarantine, and we know it's hard. We know it's not pleasant to have to quarantine, but we'd still ask everyone to try to give the quarantine the full 14 days just because we want to be safe. And one of the reasons we want to be safe is we are close to the end of this. Both Moderna and Pfizer have released their vaccine numbers. They're 95% effective. They'll probably be in approval in the next 30 days or so. And then distribution can start from there, which will be challenging and timely, but we'll get out there. Bishwa asked a question about the schools closing sooner. So I would say, as of right now, no. However, we do know that New York Public Schools did just decide to close for a period of time. Everything's always on the table. We're not seeing a lot, or really any, in-school spread in Norwood. Now, here's where we need to look at the actions across the whole state and the whole country, but we also need to remember that things are a little different on the ground in each community. We have about 400 students doing remote learning. So right off the bat, that takes 400 students out of the school department. Not really out, but in terms of physically appearing. And then with the hybrid model, students are only in school 2 days out of 5, so 2 out of 7 if you look at the whole week. And the facilities department is doing a bang-up job keeping the schools healthy and clean. The schools themselves are doing a great job with distancing and following proper protocols. So right now, in Norwood at least, we're not seeing that spread in the schools. It's the same thing at St. Catherine's. A lot of private schools that have been in since September haven't seen that same spread. There is a bit of a problem there that every town is different. We have a program for essential employees, which is, in this case, is everyone, where we were offering child watch for essential employees in Norwood so that teachers could be able to teach, and DPW and linemen. We're actually able to expand that starting in January to the public, which we're happy about. One of the reasons we had to do that is our classroom size at the elementary school is too small. So where the governor wanted, or the Commissioner of Education wanted teachers to be able to bring their kids to school, we just didn't have the space to accommodate that. So we said, here's another alternative to be able to do that. So, Norwood's a little bit different. At some point, if we did see that in-school spread, whether it was on a school-by-school basis or classroom-by-classroom basis, they may end up shutting things down. There may be a decision to go remote for a month or 2 months here or there, part of a statewide plan, or maybe even a national plan. Everyone keeps saying there's going to be a national lockdown. Well, there's not going to be a national lockdown. The federal government doesn't usually tell us these things, and sometimes the state doesn't always communicate what's coming down the pipeline to us. I'll be honest with you, there are times we watch the governor's briefing to find out what's going on, just like everyone else, and then try to react to it. So I don't think they're going to make that decision at this point, but the numbers are continuing to climb, so that it could end up happening, and we would look to do what we could do to try to help people in that process, because we know that nobody wants to go through another lockdown. We know that for some families they can do the remote learning, for some families they can take care of the kids at home, but that doesn't work for every family, and it causes severe economic hardships for some families as well. One of the questions that we haven't really talked about here in Norwood but has come up elsewhere, and it's come up indirectly here that I think is worth addressing, is some folks have said, well, kids aren't completely in school, but the school committee's meeting remotely and some other boards are meeting remotely. We need to focus on what's important, and kids being in school is important when it's safe to do so. So if there's other things that we could do remotely that we don't have to do in person, I would rather do those things remotely so that kids can go to school, so that restaurants can be open, and that other in-person things that are important can happen in a safe manner. I use the same example with paying bills at Town Hall. I always encourage everyone to please either pay online or mail that payment in. It reduces a potential exposure. And sure, you can come into Town Hall and pay a bill, call the treasurer's office ahead of time just so we can get you on the list. But if you can do something without an exposure and there's no negative impact, we always encourage people to do that. So my perfect example of that is paying a bill. Mail it in, pay it online. That way there's no interaction, because we want to keep the interactions open that help businesses and that help kids stay in school. Now, I don't want people to not go to a restaurant, not go to a retail store. We want people to do that. We just want you to do it safely. Talk about the holidays and testing, because this issue has actually come up. Some folks want to see if they can get a COVID test, and then that they'll be safe to host the holidays or go out for Thanksgiving or have people over. We always support testing, but we recommend against that for a couple of reasons. One, it's sort of a misuse of testing resources that are out there. I mean, the country only has so many testing resources out there. The free testing sites that you've seen in some communities are getting very long lines. But it's also a matter of, you really need to quarantine to know that you're not positive. So if I get out of work at 4 o'clock on Thursday and I go get a COVID test and it's negative, it's possible, I mean, would you assume that every day from there I'm not coming into contact with anyone? And you can get exposed and still test negative before it ends up coming out in the system. So it's not a perfect system to say, well, if we get a negative test, we should be able to go for Thanksgiving. I know we've done that for some travel restrictions. I think that's just hoping to keep out the sort of low-hanging fruit of somebody who tests positive. But if you're thinking, I want to go get a negative test so we can do a Thanksgiving, I would really, really recommend you just don't do that big group Thanksgiving because it's just not going to give you the kind of accurate information you're going to want to see to know about it. We know that that means that people are going to be a little lonely this year for Thanksgiving, and we hope that we can overcome it and think of it as the tough struggle that it is for this holiday season to get us to a better place as a community and as a Commonwealth. I do want to remind folks on our COVID, and we do have some other updates because we always want to move in a more positive direction, but we do have every student in the school department is required to have a flu shot. We are setting up flu clinics, if you will, through some of the local pharmacies at the schools. Those will probably be in December, although I'd have to check on the date. You can get a flu shot by calling your local doctor, calling your doctor, or any of the pharmacies in town. We always encourage everyone to get a flu shot. The more flu shots, the better. But it's a matter of people being aware of the need to get a flu shot, and we just always encourage it. I got my flu shot this year. I did great. There probably will be a robocall on Monday about the town's flu clinic. I think we're doing that because we still have some doses left, and we'd like to get as many people inoculated against the flu as possible. Great question. Maple Street and Fulton, Fox on Monday and Fox on Sunday, two of them. Tell the people to watch out because they come around 6 p.m. We'll report that to Animal Control, and it's a great chance to actually talk about Animal Control and our great Animal Control Officer, Henry, and some of the things that Animal Control has to do and people sometimes get a little worried about. We've had a couple of incidents in the last year or two where Animal Control has had to shoot a rabid animal. And I know that frightens some people. You know, all of a sudden you hear sort of a gunshot go off. You see Henry out there with a small rifle shooting a rabid skunk or some other animal. And we know that that frightens people. The problem is rabies is a serious disease that can cause serious health complications. And because rabid animals are so unpredictable, if that opportunity, you know, the ACO sort of clears the field and then has to take that shot. If he doesn't, the likelihood that that animal's going to run somewhere and it could bite somebody, it could quite possibly take somebody's life. I mean, rabies is a serious disease, and I don't think folks really recognize how dangerous and how deadly that is. We did have an issue at one of the schools. There was a little concern there, and we got to work on our communication protocol that there was a rabid animal outside one of the school buildings, and Animal Control had to go and dispatch the animal. But I got to tell you, as frightening as that may be and as worried people may be about the safety in a situation like that, the idea of a rabid animal getting into a building, getting into your home, and biting somebody is far too worse. It's a far greater risk. It is tough if sometimes animal control is limited by the laws if an animal's not rabid, but we will make sure we're aware of the foxes. You can always call the Norwood Police Department, and they will dispatch the animal control officer as appropriate depending on the situation. Jeannie, I agree. Communication is key in those situations, and that's something we're going to work on to make sure it's communicated a little bit better, and how we can make sure that folks know the ACO is out there, and that folks in a school building or in another building know what's going on, because it's a catch-22. It's a very frightening situation, but I hate to think of the idea of a rabid animal getting into a building somewhere. Can cause, you know, rabies is a serious disease. But we are going to work on our communication around that. And again, animal control will never just show up and like shoot an animal or take an animal out. They've got to make a determination that they're rabid at that point, and then they have to take whatever actions necessary to make sure they protect people. And I admit it can be a little frightening, especially if folks have moved from Boston or a more urbanized environment. I know we like to think that Norwood's fully built out, and we are, but we do still have our fair share of critters around, and unfortunately there's still some maintenance that needs to take place there, as unfortunate as that can be. But you're right, communication is cool, and we'll make sure we check out Fulton and Maple and keep an eye on it. Maple Street. So that's really where we are with COVID. The numbers are up. Our 1 week numbers are less of an increase than last week, which is good, but 1 week's data is not enough to make any real decisions or to make any proclamations about what's happening. So we want folks to be safe. Please consider as low-key of a Thanksgiving as possible. And I know that might be tough, especially with older family members who maybe you don't get to see that often, but please keep it as low-key as possible. keeping things in your household or your immediate outer household is always what's best. So, sobering if anything else, but those are our COVID updates, and we be happy to answer any questions anyone has on COVID. We do have a couple of other announcements and a few things we want to get into, including some exciting news about Norwood Day and how we're going to try to do that this year and next year. I do want to thank Subaru of New England. They did a touchless turkey drop today. That's a tongue twister. Touchless turkey drop today, and gave out several hundred turkeys, and we're appreciative of that as we're trying to help make sure people have plenty of food and other resources during the holiday season. Town meeting was last week. I think folks did great. I want to appreciate everyone who came out. We had a little over 90 town meeting members come out, and some of them braved the cold. They were adamant about sitting outside, so kudos to those of you who braved the cold outside. I did complain that it was cold inside, but there were about 10 people who sat outside in the cold, bundled up. We are probably looking at a remote option for town meeting in January or February. It's ultimately up to the moderator to make that decision, and we've got some staff work to try to make that happen. I shouldn't say logistically. Legally, it's a little bit challenging to try to do a hybrid model, but we're actually going to try to do a hybrid town meeting if that's possible, but still needs to be worked out quite a bit there. The DPW yard. So we did get a couple of calls this week. Folks were upset that they did close the gate a little early last week at the DPW yard. And outside, Julie says outside town meeting rocks. Kudos to you guys for standing out in the cold. I could barely stand the cold inside. I was about to start jogging laps around the gym. But then I realized that running is really hard, and that would have just made me equally tired. So the DPW does close the gate when they realize that they reasonably won't be able to get through folks in the time that they're allotted. It's important to remember that the DPW workers they're there on overtime, so they've already worked a full week. If there's any snow removal or anything else that went on, they've already done that, and they just have to close the gate at some point to make sure they can take care of everyone they have in that line. And I know that's unfortunate. What we're going to do the next 2 weeks is actually have some extended hours at the transfer station, at the Winter Street Recycling Facility is what we call it. So we'll try to have some extended hours to combat that. We've looked in the past about trying to open during the week for a day, and what we predict and what you see in a lot of towns is all that really does is kind of shift things around at an added cost. It doesn't really let us accommodate more people. It is only maybe 1 or 2 weekends a year where we're sort of closing the gate with people still needing to get in. And on those weekends, if we can reasonably predict them, and sometimes we can't, you never know what's going on and whether it's going to be a real busy weekend, whether it's a weekend where it's nice and people decide to do their leaves when the leaves fall. But we will be at the recycling center having extended hours this Saturday and next Saturday for if you need to bring your leaves. For those of you who have leaf pickup, who are doing the leaf pickup, we will be continuing to collect leaves. Just sometimes you got to give us a little bit of time. Question from Charlotte. Cold outside and a gentleman who hangs out in front of the store on Washington Street. Does Norwood have a warming center or any facility in the winter for people in this situation? We generally don't. The reason being the actual rate or instance of folks who don't have somewhere to go is ends up being pretty low. I can tell you that NPD does know that gentleman and they are in regular contact with them, and sometimes folks do just choose to do that, and that's sort of tough. There's usually some health issues there, but NPD is well aware of that gentleman in particular and the situation there. If people choose to spend all day in a bench in front of the stores, they're actually allowed to do that, and sometimes it is a choice. There's usually some other underlying health issues there, but the NPD are in regular contact with that individual and anyone else, and they would work to help those folks out any way they needed, but we can't force them into a situation where they if they simply choose not to. But we're aware of it, and I know exactly who you're talking about. It's a challenging situation there. We talked about town meeting. Town meeting went well. We have some big infrastructure projects coming up this coming spring. We'll be doing about $2.5 million worth of road paving and about $4.5 million worth of water lining. So we are going to be tearing the town up a little bit, but a lot of new water lines coming in and a lot of new road paving going in as well, which is good. If the budget goes through at town meeting in May for the following fiscal year, there's about a $1.5 million between money we get from the state and the operating budget. So it's possible that between April and October of next year, the total dollar amount of road work being done could end up being $4 million, which is a lot of paving, which is a good thing. We need to pave roads. We talked about the DPW yard. Charlotte, absolutely. If you see somebody who is suffering or struggling or in a tough situation, you can always let NPD know, and they will be sure to take care of it. So the other item I want to talk about, and this is what I really wanted to talk about, is what's going on this fall and how we're supporting small businesses. The Friends of Norwood Center has a campaign, This Fall Shop Small, and it's a great campaign. They're pushing everyone to shop small, not just on Small Business Saturday, and we're going to talk about that in Norwood Day, but the entire season. We know that businesses tend to suffer in the winter, and especially with shutdown or the governor's restrictions on restaurants in particular, a lot of businesses are going to be suffering. People aren't going out as much for the retail world. I know it's easy to order from Amazon, but if it's something you can order locally, we're asking everyone this fall, shop small. Try to get something from a local store if you can. It's very helpful. We want these stores and these businesses to be here next year as well when we're through this, because we will get through this. What the town's doing to support that is we've launched our Norwood Day 2020 campaign. So everyone knows what Norwood Day is. Every year we gather on Washington Street. There's thousands of people. There's food and games and fun and family and friends, and it's just a great time. We all love it. Businesses love it. People love it. It's sort of our community day. It's our town day every year, and we love it. We couldn't have Norwood Day this year. I think the outdoor gathering limit is 25 people, so putting 10,000 people on Washington Street certainly exceeded that by a little bit more than we felt comfortable with exceeding. So we've come up with Small Business Saturday, November 28th, is Norwood Day 2020. And here's what I'm going to talk about, what we're going to ask everyone to do. I've got my list here, and you can do as many of these as you're able to. What we'd love to see is if folks want to sort of create it as like a checklist and see if they can do everything on the list, or maybe your family can go through and do some of them. And of course, you can do them the day before or the day after. And we want everyone to push and promote what they're doing on social media to get these businesses out there and to get them that recognition. Joe has posted it here, and thanks to Joe for producing this in the comments, how we're doing Norwood Day 2020. I want to pull up my list here because we're going to talk about what some of these mean and how we want folks to be able to do them. So what we're asking everyone in the community to do, all of us, this Norwood Day 2020, which is Small Business Saturday, November 28th, eat local, shop local, wear local, and do good locally. So that sounds like a lot, but the key word is local. So what do we mean? Eat local, go out to a local restaurant. If you don't feel comfortable going to a restaurant, go ahead and do takeout from that restaurant. Or go buy a gift certificate from that restaurant to use down the road, or just to give to somebody down the road. I know I'm going to be doing, it's easy for me, I do mostly gift cards and gift certificates, mostly gift certificates this year for Christmas gifts. Shop local. Now, shop local could be buying a gift card somewhere to a restaurant, even if it's somewhere you've never been before or somewhere you go to 5 times a week. It's your regular local place. Buy a gift card. Give it as a gift. Give it to somebody else. And that's another way to shop local. We have a lot of retail merchants on Route 1. We do have them on Route 1. We have them on Washington Street. We have them down in South Norwood. Go into some of these businesses. Maybe it's a place you've never gone into before, and see what you can purchase. Help them out by doing your holiday shopping, by buying gift cards. Try to shop local when you can. We're also asking folks on that day, let's wear local. So I have a lot of town logoed stuff here, but I have a lot of Mustang gear as well. So I know I'm going to try to wear as much Norwood and as much Mustang gear as I can on that day. I know I've got shirts, jackets. I think I have a pair of Mustang sweatpants that I don't usually go out and walk around in sweatpants, but maybe I will on that day to wear as much Mustang and Norwood gear as I can. I even have Mustang socks that I think I'm going to wear that day. So show your local pride that day and wear local. There's a lot of great restaurants out there. You can wear a shirt from a restaurant or a cafe or a bar or a retail shop that sells stuff with their logo on it. I'm sure places, I know Charles River Running does. I think Castle Island does. I think Limey sells merchandise. You can also go right into we have Straight Stitch and we have Day Street Sports. They both sell all sorts of Norwood gear and other towns, but we want you to wear Norwood gear. Tassos at the airport, absolutely. They're Norwood too. Go pick up one of their shakes. Go pick up one of their family meal deals. And again, it's about what you're doing that day, but do it for somebody else. Leave a meal for your neighbors that you picked up at one of our local restaurants. And I'm always encouraging people to try places you haven't gone before, but it's okay to go to your regular local place that you go to all the time as well. So wear local on that day. And that could be as much as if you're a member of a PTO, wear a shirt for the PTO, wear a shirt for your church, wear a shirt for your civic group, or a hat, or whatever it happens to be. Wear something local that day so people know that you're supporting everything that we do here locally. And then last is do good locally. And by doing all of these things, you're doing good locally. But if you get a chance, make a donation to your PTO or to your Rotary Club or to your church. Most importantly, one of the things you can do good locally, if you're not able to donate, if you go to any of these places, post a good review online. That's how we're going to get your Norwood Day button, but we'll get to that in a minute. There's places I've gone to so many times, and I realize I've never actually left a positive review. That's important to these businesses. It can be a retail business, it can be a restaurant business, it can be your accountant. If you have an accountant that's locally, go online and leave them a good review. We want folks to do that to help build up the businesses in town, to help get the message out there. And if we got 1,000 positive reviews all across the town on that day, it would be absolutely worth it. Go buy a pair of shoes and leave a good review. Go, buy something in a market, leave a good review, and try to pick the local places to support them. Pick up your holiday shopping somewhere and leave a good review. What you can also do is take a picture, and this is what we want folks to do when you're eating local, when you're shopping local, and even if you're just wearing local, that's fine too. Take a picture. The description there has the hashtags we want you to use, and put that online. Tag the business. Hey, had a great lunch at this restaurant. Hey, picked up a great tool at this tool shop. Or hey, had a great experience at this particular business. Post that online. We all love posting stuff online, and share other people's posts. So that way it helps these businesses get recognition. It helps them know that you're here, and it helps folks know that we're out there supporting them. That's how we're going to do Norwood Day this year, is supporting each other. And the best thing is, we have Norwood Day buttons coming. 2020 limited edition Norwood Day buttons. Now, these are a hot ticket item for a couple of reasons. One, 2020 will certainly go down in the history books, so they are limited edition. Oh, you can donate to the Cultural Council. It's a great way to do it. Deborah's got a great idea there. But your 2020 Norwood Day button does a couple of things. One, it gets you into Norwood Day 2021. And two, it is limited edition. There will never be a Norwood Day button from the year we didn't have a regular Norwood Day. And the image on them is incredible. It's a great picture somebody took of Central Street. So it'll remind us of this year and of the good things and of the successes that came out of one of the hardest years we've faced in our history. So we're going to be distributing buttons to a lot of local businesses, and we're not sure if we'll be able to get a list out in time because, like everything else, shipping is delayed. But that's okay. As long as you've used the hashtags and you're tagging the business or you're taking a picture of yourself and using the hashtags, we'll be able to find you and make sure you get that Norwood Day button. And if you are a business, you can email Travis at the rec department, tfarley@norwoodma.gov, and he'll deliver a supply of buttons to you to give out to your customers, only if they participate in Norwood Day by doing at least one of those four things. And that could be as simple as a family of four goes out and they say, hey, there's four of us, we'd like our Norwood Day buttons. Take a little selfie of you guys at that restaurant, having a great breakfast at restaurant A. Post that on your social media, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. We're not too cool, we're not on TikTok yet, but maybe down the road we will. But go ahead and post those, and you'll be able to get your Norwood Day button. So for people like Courtney who have one from every Norwood Day, you have to participate to get the limited edition 2020 Norwood Day button. And there's no cost to them. So normally you pay, I think, $3 for a Norwood Day button. These buttons, if you participate in Norwood Day 2020, are free, and they're good for admission to Norwood Day 2021, and they're only going to come once, and they are limited edition. We know Norwood Day is going to continue. We want our businesses to continue, so everyone participating in this is the one way we're going to make sure that businesses survive, that they stay through the winter, and that they thrive. We don't want to just survive till the spring. We want to thrive and be even better. So that's what we want everyone to continue to do. And that's how you can participate in our version of Norwood Day for 2020. Call it the socially distant Norwood Day. Go out with your family, restaurant, shop. You go donate somewhere. Do at least one of those things. If you want to do a challenge and try to do all four, post that picture online or take a picture of a positive review you posted online that day. Those things will all count. Let us know. Businesses can email Travis, and then we'll get to everyone who didn't get a button as long as you participated on November 28th, which is Norwood Day 2020. So please participate. Those of you who everyone here has a social media profile. If you're watching this live, go online to the town's post, and a number of other agencies and entities have shared that post. And like and share that post to get the message out there about Norwood Day 2020, because we want as many people participating as possible and posting and tweeting and Instagramming and Facebooking all the different businesses that you're going to and supporting, and showing that support to businesses and letting the world know that we have great local businesses and that we're all shopping local and all supporting our community to get us through. I think it's a great challenge for us. I know I'm going to do all 4 of them. Do as many of them as you can. Do them 10 times if you can. But go ahead out there, and that's our Norwood Day 2020. That's how we want to support our businesses and keep them going. We'll be posting on the town Facebook page some local officials who will be doing it at different places. We might be doing a couple of short live streams from different businesses, trying to do it all in a socially distanced way, and of course doing a live stream wearing a mask when other people are around is challenging, so we'll work on the logistics of it. But we want it to be a fun day where people get out there in the community and support these businesses, and it can be as simple as running in and buying a gift card, running in and buying a transaction, and that's it. So that's our Norwood Day 2020. Rachel, question with the Norwood Fund. I would have to check the latest, although I will tell you, with the winter coming, and sort of now we're 2-3 months after the additional unemployment had ended, we are seeing the need tick up quite a bit. I think we're still in good shape, but I will have to get the numbers for you next week. You can always donate to the Norwood Fund. We at some point are going to spin it off as sort of its own separate entity. But it's going to people. It helps either veterans, seniors, or food security in particular, or utility assistance. We are seeing that utility assistance creep up as we get into the heating season. The town has a small, what we call the Gift of Warmth Fund. It's never been able to help more than a handful of people, but we're seeing those numbers jump up. And sometimes where the funds overall are too limited to be able to help people with rental or mortgage assistance, it would just go too quickly. But sometimes helping on that periphery keeps people going. I know that the Veterans Program, there's about 40 people in the Veterans Program, and they've sort of every month provided an additional stipend of food support to veterans in need in the community for additional support. You can give to the Norwood Fund as another way of another good way to do good locally. Absolutely, that money stays local. There's a lot of other charities out there too, because while we're obviously partial to the Norwood Fund because the town started it, there's a lot of other charities out there. And Dora says not just the additional unemployment benefits have ended, regular benefits have ended too. That's true. Somebody who's laid off at the beginning of COVID is likely running out. So the Norwood Fund is there. You can always either call our call center or email the manager's office if you're in need of assistance. It's always kept confidential. It can help with food and utilities. Particular focus on seniors and veterans, but anyone in need can contact them, and we do what we can do to help. And we're working with the Ecumenical Food Pantry as well to help support them. We did have a Mustang food drive last week that went well to sort of help bump up their numbers, and I know a lot of other agencies are participating. So by all means, reach out. We can always use your help with the Norwood Fund, and it's a great way to do local. I mean, give within the content. Give within. I was about to say the length of your cable toe. Give within the ability of your means, but even if you have no means to be able to give funds to help out and you can't purchase anything from a local business, if you like them, you can go online and leave a positive review. And whether you do it on their website or do it on their website and your own, post about the last 10 places you went to and how great they are, tag the restaurant and share it. They like that stuff, and we want people to come and see these businesses and to be there. But we're always here to help. So if you can't give to the Norwood Fund, that's okay. If you can, we appreciate it. There's no, as we've said before, for anyone who's new, we set up the Norwood Fund in immediate response to COVID to have some means to help people with food and sort of utility assistance and a few other related items. There's no overhead on that. We don't pay anyone out of that. There's no salaries. 100% of what goes into that gets distributed to people. So it's a great way to make sure that 100% of your fund goes to help. But there's so many other charities out there in town. You can give to your local civic groups. Again, you can give to your PTOs. You can give to your civic groups, your Rotaries, your Knights of Columbus, those things. Those all ultimately give the money back to somebody else as well. There's a lot of churches in town. You can give to those. There's all sorts of ways you can give. So that's part of that doing good locally that I think those of us who have anything to give should be grateful. And Thanksgiving is supposed to be about being grateful. So I know on Norwood Day 2020, I'm going to be grateful for everything I have, for my friends and family, for the job that I have, for this town and this community, and I'm going to want to show that support by being grateful. And there's a lot of ways you can do it, whether you have means to give or not. So we just encourage everyone to continue to do that. 2020 is almost over. There's about 6 weeks left. Who knows what can happen in 6 weeks, but I think we've weathered the storm as well as any community can, and in many cases better than any community. And we just have a few more months of this to get through. So this fall, shop small and participate in Norwood Day 2020. It will be one for the record books. I think that's all I have for updates. I would be more than happy to take any other questions folks have. I'm going to take a moment here and scroll through the comments just to make sure I didn't miss anything. As we scroll through, thank you, Sheila, for your compliment. Schools, we had said, as of right now, not closing, but you never know what the state might end up doing. The governor seems to want to keep schools open. That could always change. We'll follow those instructions. Oh, I did want to mention enforcement of COVID violations. So if we do get a call, somebody had actually reached out to us. There was a little bit of a miscommunication on our end. They'd contacted the police department over the weekend. The police department said they'd contact the health department. Health department doesn't actively check their phones regularly over the weekend. They do get the messages, and that it was sort of felt that it was dropped. I'll reply to that person directly. We've patched up that communication issue in how we would respond if you think you see a lot of people at a gathering. Obviously, if you think you see something unsafe, you can always let us know. On the other hand, we do always want folks to focus on what's keeping you and your family safe, and that's important. Norwood Fund, I will get you a number, Rachel, and you can always give to the Norwood Fund. And if you are in need, you can contact our citizen call center. You can also email us at managers@norwoodma.gov. It's always confidential. We just take a little bit of information, and that's it. And we'll be able to get you at least some temporary, immediate help with whatever you're going through. We'll be able to help out. Contact the MPD if you do see anyone in need. With Charlotte's question about folks sometimes staying on a bench downtown, they are regularly in touch with those people. If you think they need help, by all means, let the NPD work. Outside town meeting does rock. We'll see if maybe we'll never have to do outside town meeting again. Did want to mention the Winter Street Recycling Facility will be open on the 21st and the 28th from 8 to 3:30, so we've extended hours there for the increase in the leaf pickup and everything, or leaf drop-off. And that seems to be all. Will Santa be coming to town on the 28th? The rec department is working on a very special series of programs for this fall, including a Santa program. I don't know if they've put out yet exactly what it will be, but the rec department has never failed us, and they will never fail us, and they will be having a Santa program for this year. It'll be a little bit different than it usually is, but we can count on the rec department to do something great. So they'll probably be putting something out about that in the next week or so, if not sooner. They may have already. They do have a new program starting in June. Can't wait till June. In January, if you do need a remote learning enrichment program, sort of a child watch center, while your kids are remote learning, the rec department has space in their program, and I'd encourage you to check that out. So Santa information coming out soon. This fall, shop small, and Norwood Day 2020 is this coming Saturday the 28th, not this coming Saturday, the follow one. So we encourage everyone to participate in that. Are there any questions for anyone in the comments? We'll likely not have a Facebook Live next week because it is on Thursday, and I'm sure that most of the data that we would release would be out anyway. But on that Friday and Saturday, we'll probably be doing a couple little short live videos from some local businesses as we go and just showcase what's open and what's around there. We won't be able to hit everyone, but we'll be able to hit some of them and just showcase what's out there, and we encourage you to do so. Businesses, if you want Norwood Day buttons to be able to give out for folks to participate in, contact Travis Farley at the Rec Department. Please go on to our Facebook page as well as our Twitter feed and our Instagram page and like and share the post about Norwood Day 2020. We want to get everyone excited and out there on Norwood Day 2020 supporting our local businesses. With that, if there's any other questions, you can post them here. We'll get to them, or you can email us at managers@norwoodma.gov. With that, I'll close out. I won't see everyone next week. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this live and all the lives. We've been doing these weekly since, I believe, April. So we certainly appreciate that. Thank you for your kind comments. I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. And please stay safe and make safe choices this Thanksgiving so that way we can be on the other side of this, which we are. Thank you, everyone, and have a great week and have a great weekend.